D&D as a game has some complex rules, and when you throw a problem at your players, they might come up with some weird solutions. A few years ago, I ran a game of 5th edition. My group was exploring a haunted, ancient mine. They were attacked by a couple random undead. A pretty easy fight for them, really. They had just finished fighting when a ghost emerged through the wall. It immediately moved to possess Orla, the dwarf fighter. She rolled a 3 on her save, so it was time for some ghost possession. This was the first time my players had to deal with ghost possession, so they were a little unsure what to do. Most other types of magical possession usually give the possessee a chance to retry the save at the end of each turn, so at first they figure they'll just wait it out. But at the end of her first turn, when she doesn't get a chance to retry the save, they realize they're in some trouble. Some quick religion checks, and they figure out some basics of ghost possession. Once a creature is possessed by a ghost, they stay possessed until they're reduced to 0 hit points or a specific spell stops it, like Turn Undead or Dispel Evil and Good. None of the magic users in the group had any access to those spells, and being the fighter of the group, Orla had the most amount of hit points and the highest armor, meaning dropping her to 0 hit points was going to take a lot of time and cost the magic users a lot of spell slots. Being roleplayers, they immediately look for a way around this. The druid Briseis cast Hold Person on the fighter so that she doesn't get into too much trouble while they figure out what to do. The sorcerer Sanjana cast Dominate Person on the fighter just for good measure. The sorcerer can now use his turn to take over the fighter, and the druid's holding her in place, but she's still possessed. The ghost, meanwhile, is laughing and waiting for his possession to recharge so he can just jump into someone else. At this point, the other druid, Brill, decides to try casting Dispel Magic on the fighter, before anyone tells her to stop. Ghost possession isn't a magical effect, though, but Hold Person and Dominate Person are. So, yeah. The fighter is now free again. In desperation, the monk Kazim and Sanjana both grab her just to hold her in place. At this point, though, Briseis has an idea, and she casts Polymorph on the fighter, turning her into the form of a duck. The fighter is now in the form of a duck, but still possessed. The ghost is mainly surprised and confused. Briseis then asks Brill to cast Sacred Flames on the duck. Ducks have 1 hit point. Sacred Flame did 7 points of damage, and at this point I had to check the rules. Here is the relevant part from Ghost Possession. The possession lasts until the body drops to 0 hit points, the ghost ends it as a bonus action, or the ghost is turned or forced out by an effect like Dispel Evil and Good. And here is the relevant part from the Polymorph spell. The transformation lasts for the duration, or until the target drops to 0 hit points. So the duck takes 7 points of damage, dropping to 0 hit points. The ghost is forced out as the fighter turns back to her dwarf self, just taking 6 points of damage. The group celebrated by remurdering the ghost good.